Welcome one and all, I'm Alexis, aka the Soft Reader, and I'm here today to do my February TBR. My February TBR is actually quite small, and that is because it's a small month, but also because I have one very large book on my TBR that I'm just gonna commit to, and you'll see why. The first thing I want to mention is one arc I'm planning to get to in February, and that is Big Water by Andrea Curtis. This follows our main character Christina, who actually is running away from home after her brother dies of consumption, and she boards the ship called the Asia, and while she is aboard the Asia, a ship actually comes and destroys the boat, and so she is forced to go overboard with a young boy named Daniel, and it's about the two of them on a lifeboat, basically like trying to survive until they can be rescued. It's actually a fictitious account of a real maritime tragedy, the sinking of, I believe, the USS Asia in the 1800s sometimes. It sounds really interesting. I adore the cover, so I would really like to get to this sometime. The next book I'd really like to get to in February is one I was hoping to get to in January but couldn't, and that is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, Book 1, The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan. I'm having like Rick Riordan withdrawals because I haven't read a Rick Riordan book in over a month and I don't know who I am anymore. This is the first book in his Norse mythology series, and this follows our main character Magnus, who has actually been homeless for the past 2 years after his mother was murdered, and Magnus learns that his uncle Randolph is actually looking for him, so he goes to speak with his uncle, and his uncle actually fills him in that he is a Norse demigod, and it's basically about Magnus basically learning he's part of this prophecy to either save or destroy the world. Typical Rick Riordan stuff. I'm really excited to read this one, especially because I think people consider this one a little bit more YA than middle grade. That's what I've heard some people say. If not, totally fine. I love these covers. I'm really interested to see Rick's take on Norse mythology, and I know that there are a lot of really diverse characters in this series that I'm really excited to meet, so I would really like to pick this up in February. The next book I'm going to mention is one of my top books to read in 2018. It is the largest book on that list. It's one of the largest books I own, and so I really would like to read this in February so that it's not hanging over my head all year, and so that it's not December and I'm like, just kidding, I have to read a 900-page book this month. So, February, I'm gonna read Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This is a story that takes place in 12th century England, and it follows a family who is headed by a builder named Tom Builder, as he is hired to build a church in Kingsbridge, and it's a lot about the political climate at this time, but also these characters and their lives, and kind of how they all interact with each other and interact with like the greater climate in England at the time. You've heard me talk about this. The Stars miniseries adaptation that was made in like 2009 or something like that is one of my favorite TV shows. I love that TV show so much, and so I've always wanted to pick this book up. So I said I wanted to do it in 2018, and again, it is very large, it's probably very dense. I want to read this now so that it's not hanging over my head for the rest of the year, so hopefully I can make it happen. The last two books on my TBR are actually part of my Feminist Literature February TBR. This is hosted by Jane over at It's Jane Lindsay. I participated last year and had a really good time, and so I wanted to participate this year, even if it meant I was only reading 1 or 2 books. The first one I'm actually going to listen to on audiobook, and that is The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a book that is highly loved and also critically acclaimed. It's the first book in a trilogy that takes place with this world in this story ending, and it follows a mother who's not entirely human, and she comes home one day to find her son has been brutally murdered by her husband, and she is trying to figure out where her missing daughter is and what happened, and how it all fits into the bigger story of this world coming to an end. People really like it. I have the audiobook. I got it on sale months ago from Audible. I really would like to read this. I really hope I enjoy it. And so I'm reading this one for Feminist Literature February because it fits a whole bunch of the challenges. The first challenge it meets is that it is written by a black woman. N.K. Jemisin is a woman of color. The second challenge it fulfills is that it is a work of feminist fiction. I've heard from many people that this deals with a lot of feminist topics, and that the main characters, I believe, are all women, and so it's told from women's perspective and different classes and races and stuff like that. So yes, I'm really excited to read this. Like I said, I'm listening to this one on audiobooks. And the last thing I'm reading for Feminist Literature February, and the last thing I hope to read in February is in general, is Monstrous Volume 2, written by Marjorie Liu and illustrated by Sana Takeda. I'm using this one for two things, kind of. I think this one can go as my free space, my book recommended by a feminist, or the feminist fiction part. This is a series that also deals heavily with class and race and balance of power. This follows our main character, Micah Halfwolf, as she is trying to figure out what happened to her and her past and what happened to her mother. And this is all set against the backdrop of a brewing war between humans and half-human, half-demon creatures called Arcana. And so this is the second volume. I read the first volume in January, really loved it. I'm really eager to pick up volume 2, and I think it's a perfect read for Feminist Literature February, especially because the cast in this graphic novel is almost exclusively female. I think there are maybe two male characters that show up more than once, and all of the rest of the characters are female, or their gender is not specifically stated. So I think this is a great pick for Feminist Literature February. Alrighty guys, those are all of my books that I'm hoping to read in the month of February. I hope I can read them. Again, I'm really intimidated and nervous about Pillars of the Earth. I hope that one goes well. Fingers crossed I can read that one. I would absolutely love to know what you guys are planning to read in February. If you like what I do, I upload videos on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll see you guys soon with a new video. Bye!